Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to another fine episode of Fear and Loathing in Peter's Tech Shack here. And I just wanted to show you something interesting that was given to me. I posted this on the Reddit Apple II group. Anyway, I wanted to show you this motherboard, which a friend of mine gave me when he saw what I was doing with my Apple over the weekend. He decided to take down his Apple time capsule, and in it he found this board that was wrapped in paper that a friend of him gave him 25 years ago. And it was really intriguing because it looked like an Apple board or Apple clone, if anything, but it was not the same thing. What I noticed right away, and I had pulled the chip out, it had two processors in it, the 6502, and that socket there had a Z80, which I pulled for the time being. So that told me right away that this board had the Microsoft type language card built in on the motherboard, which I thought was really unique. So I scoured the whole internet looking for info on this, and I finally ran into Retro Eric's YouTube page, where he explained these Norwegian, I think they were Norwegian clones, made in the Netherlands maybe. I'm not really sure exactly. Maybe they're made in Japan and sold by them. I don't know. I think it was made by them. And what it was a PC called the West PC-800, and this is the motherboard. And it's close to an Apple clone, but there's a lot of differences. And of course, when I fired it up, I had a lot of problems. Obviously, I went through the whole thing, pulled every chip, found a lot of ICs where the pins were actually bent under the chip, so they weren't even making contact. So whoever put this together just threw it together, or maybe they tried to fix it and messed it all up. So I'm in the middle of restoring it. I really want to get this working, just for the fact that it has that built-in Z80. I want to see if I can run CPM on it. There's the my monitor plugged into the video out. When I first fired it up, oh, by the way, power, luckily I found a connector for it. It had a strange power connector on it, but I found some plugs in the shack here that fit on there, and I'm running it off a standard old AT power supply. Now, some of these older supplies, if you look, had the -5 and -12 that is required by the Apple motherboard. A lot of the new ones don't have the -5, so you gotta, if you want to use an old AT type supply, you got to make sure it's got the -5 on it. Anyway, there it is. It's all put together, and I had a lot of issues. One of them was the capacitor here. There's a tuning cap that looks like this one here. It looks like that. That's used for tuning the color, I believe, the phase of the color output. But this one here it tunes the master oscillator of the board so that you can adjust your horizontal timing and stuff to better center the picture on the monitor. Anyway, the oscillator wouldn't fire up. So in messing around with it, of course, I broke the crystal off the board, so I had to put a new crystal on there. Luckily, I had the right frequency, 14.3182, which is what they use. And I decided, well, let me just put a capacitor, try some capacitors just to see. And I tried 47 picofarad, and bam, it came to life. I had to adjust my horizontal on my monitor because it was way off. So later I'll probably restuff that with a tuning cap or play around with the values and find out which one works best for centering. All right, let's fire it up. I want to show it to you on the screen. The screen's alive. I've got the video tied to this board. We'll fire up the old power supply, see if it comes alive. Oh, one thing about these power supplies too, let me show you something. They got that sense, there's a sense jumper you got to have in there, good power sense. It tells it when to fire up. There we go. So look at it, came up in graphics mode. And the reason it's in graphics mode is it comes up randomly because the CPU crashes, because this board, believe it or not, if you notice, has no ROMs on it. So the CPU doesn't know what to do. And I think they did that to get out around copyright infringement. And so they provided the ROMs on a card that went in one of the slots, kind of like a language card. So what I'll do, I ordered a brain board, and I'll program the ROMs on the brain board and see if they'll fire up. So here's a normal fire up when it comes up in text mode. And first thing you notice, if you look, what do you notice? If you look at the letter C, the C's, let me see if I can hone in there. See that C? All right, look at those C's, man. They're reversed. So one of the problems I had with this board was the EEPROM. First of all, when I first fired it up, all I had was black and white blocks of flashing garbage. And so I came down here and looked, and whoever put this together had the EEPROM in backwards. And I understand why, because whoever soldered the socket on this motherboard soldered it backwards so to fool you into plugging it in backwards. And so when I examined that, I said, oh boy, you know, I've seen these EEPROMs, these 2716s, when you plug them in backwards, the die right there, it looks like a light bulb. It turns into a light bulb and just flashes. It's like a lamp. So I knew that was toast. Here's the original. I pulled it out. When I put it back in, you get nothing but garbage. So I knew it was toast. So I burned this EEPROM with the same one I put on my Apple with the lowercase characters and so forth that I put on my Apple mod, and plugged it in the right way. And guess what? Well, this is what I noticed is it's backwards. So what these guys did, I figured out, is they basically took the wiring from here, from this EEPROM, over to the shift register, which is a 161, and I forget where it's at. But anyway, the data lines that go from here to the shift register are backwards, wired in reverse. So where bit 0 would go to bit 0, instead it goes to bit 7. It's all reversed. So anyway, I wrote a program to flip those bits, invert all the bits in the file this morning, and I'll program an EEPROM later and see what I can get going, and hopefully it'll look okay. Then once the brain board comes in, we'll try to fire it up and see if we get any kind of processing going. I do know that the 6502 does try to process for a while because I put a scope on it, and I can see it trying to work, but then it just stops. So I think it hits an instruction that puts it in a like a break instruction or something, puts it in the stop. So anyway, if you're going to do this kind of work, get yourself one of these nice, or any. You're going to have to get yourself an EEPROM eraser. I just erased a whole boatload of these 2716s that I had lying around. I'm glad I didn't toss these things because, you know, you want to toss these things, but when you get into projects like these, they're great to have around. And these are cool because they got the gold leads on them. So I don't know if this motherboard's worth that yet, but we'll see. Anyway, it seems to be pretty stable. The video looks really good. Everything works so far. So another thing you'll notice about this motherboard too, it's only got one row of RAM chips. And there they are. If you look at the part number, 6264. So they got, instead of going with 48K, you know, 16K per row, they went the full Monty here and used the new chips and went 64K across the thing. So I think they have the circuitry because there's a lot. This board is a little bit longer than the Apple, so you know, I think there's a little bit of circuitry added on here to support the Z80, and also it's got a built-in language card. So I can't wait to see if that fires up and works too. And if you're going to do this kind of restoration work and try to debug this stuff like Adrian does at the Digital Basement, get yourself a cheapo scope. You don't have to go digital, man. In fact, for this kind of work, I actually like my old Tektronix because you don't have to fiddle around trying to set it all up and get the programming right and everything. I mean, I do have another Tektronix digital capture scope down here, an old dog that's digital, still tube, but I love that thing. But for just this kind of work, you want to look at some signals. It's nice to have basically just a general scope. You can take your probe, for example, and let's say we want to look at a data pin here. So what I'll do, let's say we want to see what's happening on this chip. Let's see here. Put it right here. I think that's a data line. No, maybe this one. Let me see. There you go. And so you can kind of see the data, what's going on with the data, and so you can see what signals are doing. Pretty soon you start to recognize what's going on. You can look at the 161 counters. which are over here. Where are they? There's a bunch of counters here somewhere that do the counting. I believe it's these right here, these 161s. These are the actual counting for the number of horizontal and vertical, horizontal scan lines and vertical blank and all that. So you'll start learning how the circuit works. There's a lot of info out there about the Apple. There's some great books out there that describe the whole circuit. So if you're really interested in learning how the beast works, technically, you got to get your hands in there and start reading and learning about all the craziness. But what a great design for 1970s to get the color out and everything. It's pretty amazing still to me that these guys came up with this in such a short time. Anyway, 10 minutes, that's it. This is a short video. Hope you guys are doing well, and I'll do another video once I get that character ROM burned to see what it looks like, and maybe get the brain board installed, and hopefully we'll get something firing up and see an AppleSoft prompt. So take care, you guys, and Fear and Loathing and the Tech Shack here is done for the week. See ya.